Hello everyone, this is Lala, and today or tomorrow, based off of when you're seeing this, I am going to go over the 8 Big Brother strategies based on a wiki article talking about the social strategies. I literally did this live several hours ago. I was on StreamYard and everything was set up. I checked my mic several times and it said that it was on and it wasn't muted, so I don't know what the fuck happened. I'm assuming that was because I used headphones. That's why it didn't really go anywhere. So for now, I'm just not going to use my headphones, or maybe I should just continue doing pre-recorded live streams. Clearly, I'm just going to do this because I don't feel like doing all the breaking down edits and whatnot. So I'm just going to get right to it. So the audio, which is my voice that you're hearing, I'm doing several hours after I did the visual, which you will see on the photo. So I've been wanting to do this for a while, but I never really knew how I was going to handle all of the strategy stuff and how to break it down. So this is the page that I was referring to when it was talking about the social strategies. And because Big Brother USA is a social game, obviously the strategies that are implemented are going to be social. So right over here, you see the 8 strategies, which is the coaster, collaborator, floater, gamer, leader, loudmouth, snake, and under the radar. The coaster is the main one that I'm going to be focusing on today, but the collaborator is pretty much the second in command when it comes to a partnership or an alliance. The floater is pretty self-explanatory, someone who bounces between the power. The gamer is someone who's obsessed with competitions, and they generally have a very entitled way of looking at the season. Um, the leader is pretty much the figurehead of an alliance. The loudmouth is someone who uses intimidation or aggression for the strategy. The snake is someone who uses manipulation and a false nice image to influence things amongst the house and to get other people to do their dirty work. And under the radar is pretty self-explanatory. These are people who are intentionally laying low while letting other people take each other out. Throughout this series that I'm hoping that I'm going to be able to do for the next 7 weeks consistently, I am just going to. Some of them might fit more than one category, so that's kind of just how I'm going to handle this. So, looking here, the definition of the coaster is that it's a social strategy that includes players who often have little effect on the game or attach themselves to a stronger player to get to the end. These players often have little understanding of the game and tend to do very poorly in competitions. Unlike floaters, coasters typically remain with one alliance throughout the game. These players may float in the sense that they do not have any alliances, but they do so without any real strategy. The typical competitive strategy choice for the coasters is passive. So the house guests who have employed the strategy include Jordan Lloyd, Kathy Hills, Adam Park, Jen Arroyo, Victoria Raffaelli, Meg Malley, James Huling, specifically from Big Brother 18, Raven Walton, Matthew Klein, and Kevin Schluber, hopefully I said that correctly, from Big Brother 19, Sam Bledsoe, Asa Awesome, and Derek Frazier, and Alyssa Snyder. She's one that I kind of debate on. But anyways, I'm highlighting here people who have little effect on the game. So a lot of early boots who didn't really have much strategy or have time to formulate the strategy will fit under that. So I'll explain more when I get to the actual tier ranking. I'm not going to talk about the Big Brother Canada or the Big Brother Over the Top people because I just don't feel like it. So here is the strategy. Here are the tiers that I created. The first one are people who are bona fide coasters, so people who generally made it far but just didn't do much of anything, or they were in alliances but were hoping that that alliance would carry them throughout the game without them contributing anything. And the bottom tier are for people who were booted very early on but were just on the outs, didn't really have much control over the game, or didn't really have the chance to create a strategy, so they are there. Just to save time, for the people who aren't a coaster, I'm just going to put them here because I don't want to have to scroll all the way down to bring them all the way back up. So as you see here, I'm moving the Big Brother 1 people because it's a completely different game compared to Big Brother 2. So on to Big Brother 2, the people that I decided to put on the coaster category for this season is Autumn. She was in an alliance with Top, but she was the weakest member of the group. She really didn't contribute anything, and it was why when Crystal won H2H, I wanted an easy week. Autumn was the one to go, and Hardy definitely pushed for her to go over Kent since she was the most useless to the team, and the entire house just saw her as very mentally weak. The other people that fit this category, in my opinion, are Bunky and Monica, and these two made it very far in the game. Bunky was also a part of the top alliance, as we all know, but the difference between him and Autumn is that he wasn't seen as mentally weak. The thing with Bunky is that he kind of just stood with the top alliance for the first half of the season without realizing that the dynamics were changing, which caused for him to be flipped on in the middle of the season, where Hardy and Nicole flipped on him and Kent, and Krista flipped earlier because she didn't like Kent, and Bunky was very associated with Kent, so that's kind of why that happened the way it did. Monica is also a part of this tier because while she was a part of the top alliance, she wasn't a key member in the alliance either. And she really didn't put much forth when it came to the strategic elements of the game. She had the personal relationships, but she didn't use any of that towards her benefit. Like Bunky, Monica kind of just let the game happen around her throughout a lot of the season. She was able to see through people, kind of like Bunky was at times, but nothing materialized. Bunky definitely kissed up to the people in power, though it was mainly just Nicole and Hardy. And the fact that he was seen as such a butt kisser was something that caused a lot of people to not really respect him much, which definitely affected him in the game. So that's really all I have to say about the Big Brother 2 house guests that I put here. For Big Brother 3, I definitely have a few people that I'm moving here. The two that stand out to me immediately are Lori and Tanya. Lori didn't really have any alliance throughout the season. If I remember correctly, she actively avoided strategy. She saw it as very unethical and something that was very dirty and below her. And due to this, especially when she was on the block against Amy, it caused for the votes to flip on her because she was so inactive and she didn't really have any close alliances. The difference between Tanya and Lori, hence the difference in tiers, is the fact that Tanya was in an alliance. I think it was the Cartel Alliance with herself, Kiara, Lisa, Josh, Roddy, and Eric, if I remember correctly. But in general, she was just a passenger in the alliance and she never really took much initiative whatsoever in that group. The two others who I decided to put in this group are Jerry and Amy, where Jerry obviously was a part of the big alliance. It might have been 8 people, might have been 6 people, I don't really remember, in the first week, and he made the move to veto Marcellus while throwing out a bunch of isms and accusing a lot of the cast of having a lot of the isms, which definitely isolated him throughout the rest of the season, where that alliance kicked him out and no one really wanted to work with him, not even Marcellus. The only thing I remember about Jerry afterwards, despite being on his own island, is that the other side kind of weaponized him when he used HOH to split up the couples with booting Eric. But even outside of that, no one really worked with him. He was left alone for a while. He was kind of on an island, and there's talk about nominating him, but he ultimately went home when Jason wanted a very easy, safe week when he won HOH mid-season, which is why he was taken out. Amy is one of my favorite house guests, but she's definitely a coaster. Amy didn't give a single fuck about making any sort of alliance at all, and it was one of the reasons why she almost went home in the first week. She was associated with Marcellus, and obviously, when he won HOH the second week, she was safe. But when she was nominated the third week, despite having some sort of relationship with Roddy, she went home very easily. When Amy came back, she was weaponized by the other side to split up the final couple in the house in Roddy and Kiara, and then Amy was nominated for the rest of the season as a pawn. She was very fine with it, and she was bragging about how there were no alliances in the final four, which Jason, Danielle, and Lisa were looking around like, this is crazy. And the fact that you entered the Final Four thinking that there's absolutely no alliances really just shows how out of cusp she was. Amy is definitely a prime coaster, hence her being here. Moving on to Big Brother 4, and I have a few easy choices here. There are four people that I'm putting on this tier. The first one are Amanda and Michelle, where they are going to be at the bottom tier with people who are booted very early but didn't really create a strategy. Neither one of them really talked game with anyone. They were extremely passive in the game to the point where no one really respected them at all, and it caused for them to be very easy boots. Obviously, them being exes definitely had a huge effect on them being handicapped, but even compared to Justin, G, and Robert, who did have a solid alliance with one another and they were trying to make relationships with other people. Amanda and Michelle didn't really do that. And it's even worse for Michelle because she was trying to flirt with Nathan, but he and even David didn't really weaponize her, where they could have used her, but they decided that Erica was more worth it. Speaking of Erica, she is also someone that I am putting on the coaster tier with Jack, as while those two made it very far and they were a part of the 8 Alliance, when you really look at it, they didn't really do a whole lot. I definitely have to shout out the Reality Kingdom and the Big Brother documentary and a few other YouTubers who have talked about Big Brother 4, looking into the archives of the fate and stuff like that to really figure out what is happening, since a lot of the stuff that was happening strategically didn't really make it onto the edit. And when it comes to the Alliance, Erica and Jack weren't doing a whole lot. I do remember them really staying in the room. They were strategizing, but they're mainly strategizing with one another, not really executing the strategy. And that's the thing with them throughout a lot of the season, which made them very frustrating. And even with Jack himself, he was very close to going home the two other times that he was nominated, and he stayed due to nothing of his own doing. On to Big Brother 5, and one person I'm definitely putting up here for sure is Holly. She really wasn't in any alliances. She was in a showmance with Jace, who was attached to the Four Horsemen, but none of them really wanted to use her in an alliance, which is really awful. I've mentioned how she is easily one of the worst players ever because she was supposed to go home on the second week, though Marvin nominated her due to very icky reasons, and the only reason why she stayed is because Jace took her off the blog. And then in the third week, Drew, her boyfriend Ally, nominated her, and it's even worse because there's this misconception in the house that she was this master manipulator and she was causing dissension amongst the guys intentionally, and how she was using Jace when that really wasn't the case at all. The only other person who really fits the coaster label, in my opinion, was Cowboy, since while he was a part of the Four Horsemen Alliance, he definitely had the smallest voice in that alliance. He really wasn't strategic at all. He didn't really add his input whatsoever. And when he did try to, he had the dumbest ideas ever. Well, he really just rolled that alliance to the end, where he didn't really use his sister towards his advantage in the house. After that kind of blew up, he was stuck with the twins, though he was just bonding with them due to them being Christians, and then they went home in the early jury. And he was really carried by Drew throughout the rest of the season. He made the dumb move of evicting the Comas over Diane, where if he evicted Diane, Nokomis and Drew would have taken him to the final two instead of one another. He would have had a move on his own. But the fact that he made that move in the final four just kind of showed how much of a coaster he really is. And I don't really have anything else to care to say about him, so we're just going to move on. So, on to Big Brother 6. Ashley, I'm putting up there because she really had no alliances, and she was in the house where there was really no static alliances, or the ones that this season is known for. And she didn't do much of anything during her time on the season, so that's where she's going. I'm putting Michael in the upper tier because the difference between him and Ashley is that at least he was in the alliance, which was that guy's alliance between himself, Kaysar, Eric, and James, which completely fell apart due to Eric seeing better options and Michael really being a social pariah with how he handled all other women in the house, and him really just not getting strategy whatsoever throughout the season. So that's why I'm putting him there. Really, the only other person that I think could fit in this category from the season is Sarah, as she was a part of the Sovs alliance for sure, though she was clearly seen as an extension of James rather than them wanting her due to her own contributions as a player. Even during the week that Kesar went home, which was his first eviction in the week, the Alliance were plotting about how to get Sarah out because she was the weakest competitor of the season, and with her gone, the Alliance would still be intact and just as strong. So that's why she's here, essentially. And she didn't really care much about the strategy at all. The annoying thing about tier makers is that they use the same image for returnees, so I have to move some up. So Diane, I'm moving into a cluster, and same thing with Nokomis, and these two I'm using this in reference to their journeys on Big Brother 7. As we all know, there's a lot of preseason baggage that came, especially at the expense of Diane, where her roommate leaked her supposed plans to a lot of the people who were cast on that season, though Diane later in recent years admitted that there was no pre-gaming, she was not a part of a Mr. and Mrs. Smith alliance with Jace and all of that, and obviously Nokomis was associated with Diane due to them being friends and from the same season. And even when they were in the house, they really didn't do a whole lot of anything in the season. They were definitely out of their depths in the season, and with all that baggage, it caused for the both of them to be very early boots. The only other person that I am putting in this category is Chicken George, who obviously didn't even play Real Big Brother since he was on the first season, and that was done by an America's vote and not based on strategy. So when he did play on Big Brother 7, he was essentially a newbie and he had to learn the game as he went, and he really didn't do much strategy overall. So that ends the classic era, and we're going to move on to the post classic era. Okay, so on to Big Brother 8. I don't have many people that I'm going to put in this category, but one person that stands out to me is Coral, as she reminds me of Ashlia, though the difference is Coral really, really, really wanted to go home. She wasn't part of any of the alliances, and she was sent home because she was annoying. And Zach is also a huge standout. He was a part of that Robinson's alliance in the beginning of the season, but that obviously fell through, and he thought that he made it by due to the work he did, but he was brought by because he was really seen as a non-threat that no one really liked, no one really talked to him, and they found him miserable to talk to. They would avoid speaking to him, and he was carried by Evil Dick throughout a lot of that season, especially after Nick left. And then when he had the chance to make moves, he made dumb moves, like not using the veto in the final five to get to Danielle or Evil Dick. Sorry, Danielle sent home. Evil Dick was HOH at that time, and he was really on the out of a lot of the dynamics strategically and socially throughout a lot of the season. I do not have many people from Big Brother 9 here. As you see here, I am moving up Sharon and Sheila. A lot of the early boots weren't coasters, and they went home because they were so active in the game. I'm putting Sharon and Sheila here because they're kind of two sides of the same coin, in my opinion. Sharon's strategy, especially when she came back, was to lay back, not really do anything, and let the house kind of just take care of itself. And even on the other side, or on her side of the house, it was mainly James, Joshua, and Chelsea who was doing a lot of the strategic actions of the season, while she was kind of just a passenger going by. Sheila pretty much fits the same role with her side of the house, though it's pretty ironic because she was the one who caused the split house to begin with convincing Ryan to not backdoor Matt and to send home James, though that was done purely due to emotional reasons, since Chelsea rightfully called her out on using the mom card. But after that was done, Sheila was a bottom tier person in that alliance. She really didn't have much of a voice, and they didn't really respect her at and she was carried by Adam throughout the rest of the season. So there's a decent amount of people from Big Brother 10 that I am moving up. Steven and Angie are definitely up there for me. The other people who I am thinking about are, yeah, I'm going to move up Ollie, Jerry, and Rennie. Steven didn't really have any alliances. He was out of the loop on all of the dynamics that was happening, and he was associated with Brian, but I don't recall them ever being in an actual alliance. And it's the same thing with him and Keisha, which made him to be a very easy boot. Angie, I'm kind of debating regarding which tier I should put her in, because she obviously was a very early boot, and she really wasn't relevant in the dynamics of the season. But Angie was in a strong alliance with Jesse, Memphis, and Michelle. So with Ollie, he was the one who caused the flip on Dan and Brian once Libra and April rightfully called him out on it. And then after that, he was kind of just a passenger to the Coven, running the dynamics of the season for a lot of it. And then once that blew up, he was a passenger for April and Michelle for the second half of the season. And in general, he was just a passenger. He was never a leader. Um, Rennie and Jerry were both seen as floaters, though they weren't going back and forth between the power. Jerry might have been, actually. Rennie really wasn't. She was kind of just there. She was brought into that alliance with, yeah, I'm moving Angie up due to what I stated earlier. Once Rennie was a part of that alliance with Memphis, Dan, and Keisha, she was just a passenger. She really didn't do much strategically at all, and she was seen as very uncontrollable, which is why she was a bottom tier person. Jerry was on the outs the entire season, and he did try to make some moves, but he really just wasn't relevant to a lot of the ongoings and strategic elements of the season. There aren't a whole lot of people from Big Brother 11 that I am thinking about moving up. Obviously, with a split house, it costs there to be less room for coasters in general, but when I'm thinking about it, I'm definitely moving up Brayden and Casey. Jordan is someone that we discussed earlier regarding being a coaster, and she's one of the more notable coasters. Brayden almost stayed in the house due to nothing of his own doing. It was mainly due to Jordan and Laura, and his volatile actions actively caused him to go home. Casey was a part of that side of the house as well, but he didn't really offer anything to the table strategically, so he was kind of just easy pickings there. Lydia is someone that I was going back and forth about whether she is a coaster or not, as she was closer to the Jeff and Jordan side of the house, but she flipped to the other side so she could get the veto used on her. And once she was on the JC side of the house, she kind of just stayed there, though they didn't really see much value in her, hence her being nominated on Russell and Chima's HOHs, and they are planning on sending her home soon anyways. Jordan is the prototypical coaster. She did try to make that move to save Brayden in the first week, but after that, she kind of just stayed in the background. She and Jeff just let things happen, and she followed a lot of Jeff's advice throughout the season, where she pretty much did what he was told, to the point where he kind of needed to guide her, and it caused some frustration there between them. But Jordan's arguably one of the most successful coasters, so that is why she is here. So here's where I'm debating about whether I should put Lydia up or not, and for the reasons that I stated, but I did decide to move Lydia in. Because she wasn't an active floater, though she had every opportunity to be an active floater, but she just didn't do it, and she mainly fits the coaster strategy. On to Big Brother 12, where I'm not going to have a whole lot to say here. Monet really wasn't a part of any alliances. She might have been Enzo's side piece, supposedly, in that parachute alliance, but nothing came of it. She really wasn't strategic. Andrew ironically made fun of Monet's lack of strategy in the diary room during his goodbye message to her, though he was just as poor. He was somewhat close to Brendan, but they weren't in any solid alliance. He was the pawn that went home, partially due to Brendan winning the veto and not using it, but also just due to his antics and his freaking out when he would have been safe otherwise over Kathy. And Kathy is someone that we mentioned in the beginning of that piece where she's a prototypical coaster. She really wasn't in any of the alliances, and while she was close to the women, she didn't really use that to her benefit. She was in any alliances with them. She stayed back, and she's also notable for being very, very, very poor in competition. So that is definitely an element there. So that's pretty much it when it comes to the coasters for Big Brother 12. So, a lot of the earlier rookies aren't coasters because they're actively creating a coalition to boot the veterans. Loan was a part of the alliance, but he was the least active person in that alliance. And after that kind of blew up, he mainly just rode the coattails of Kalia, though she didn't really take him seriously, despite them being partners due to the game mechanics, but he was really just a passenger throughout the entire season, and then he volunteered to get evicted, so that's really all I have to say about him there. I have two other people that I am putting in this coaster group, which is Adam and Porsche. Adam is someone that leached onto the veterans from the very beginning of the season. It's particularly Jordan and Jeff, and that continued throughout the rest of the season, where he didn't. Not only did he leak the flip that Shirley was leading onto it, but he kind of squashed it as well. And even after Jeff was gone, he just stayed with Jordan and Rachel. Porsche is someone who wasn't liked by the newbies, which is why she almost went home. And then she got the golden key, which put her on as a passenger throughout the next few weeks of the season. She apparently was going to be the replacement nom during Kalia's first HOH, which Shelley convinced her to do before Lawan volunteered himself. But she became a passenger to Kalia and Danielle. Once that took place, though, they really just needed a number. And in general, she kind of just wrote a lot of the coattails. So that's why she's here. There are so many damn coasters on Big Brother 14, though that's clearly what the producers wanted, because they wanted a bunch of weak, easily influenced newbies, so the veterans can do the best to influence and manipulate the gang. So Jojo and Kara are early boots who didn't really get a chance to do much of anything. Kara mainly due to the coaches defining her game and her being passive in her campaign, which she admitted to, and Jojo somewhat getting screwed over due to the expulsion of Willie, though she was doing anything strategically. You just saw me move Jody up, and a lot of the day one boots are going to be moved up there because they really didn't have much time to create their own games in general, and I didn't have anywhere else to put them. So Ashley and Joe are definitely going up there. Janelle's team in general were seen as the coasters who really weren't doing anything. They weren't making any moves strategically, and they didn't really know what was going on. Joe is someone who definitely tried to make deals with people when they were HOH, though I don't know if he's an active floater. Maybe when I get to the floater section, I will put him there. Ashley is a bona fide coaster. She didn't really do much of anything. She had no idea what was going on in the house, and then she kind of rode Frank's coattails during the last few weeks, which didn't bring much favor with her. Is there anyone else that I need to add on to this? Let's see. I don't know. I'm pretty sure there's a few that I'm missing from Big Brother 14, because so many of them are just flops when it came to the strategic element of the game. Should I think about Joe? Not Jen, though she was mentioned earlier. I guess I can move her up. Is Will a coaster as well, or was he just very under the radar? That I'm really, really, really not too sure about. Uh, I don't know. Jen did kind of just ride Bucky and Frank's and coattails throughout the season, so it definitely makes sense for her to be on the list. And she was on the wiki page, so I definitely see why they added her there. Um, well, yeah, why not? I'll add him as a coaster for sure, because he really didn't have any alliances throughout the season. He thought he knew more than he did when Janelle was generally just trying to give him advice, but he blew it off, and then he went home like right afterwards. I don't know, I'm still kind of iffy on Jen. We'll see. We are ending the post-classic era with Big Brother 15, and I really only see three people who fit the coaster category, in my opinion. David was, I don't even think he was technically aligned with Aaron and them. I just think he liked them, but he really had no idea what he was doing strategically at all. So yeah. Caitlin's definitely someone who kind of was riding the coattails of people like Aaron and Jeremy. She really wasn't active in the strategy from what I remember. Though she had the potential to, but she really just never really came into her own. Gina Marie is definitely a bona fide coaster. Even over Caitlyn, Gina Marie really had little strategic implementation. She was riding the coattails of her allies, and even when most of them went home, during the first half of the season. She was left alone because she is seen as such a non-threat. I don't know if I should put Caitlyn on there, to be honest. Yeah, I'll remove her because she was a bit more active than Gina Marie in comparison. But yeah, Gina Marie's definitely getting her ass up there. Even when she was a part of the Exterminators and her big move to send home Amanda, all of them were talking about doing that anyways, and all of the moves that she made in the season were very emotional anyway, so I feel comfortable putting her there. So we are moving on to the modern era of Big Brother, and yeah, Paula's getting up there. She really had no alliances. She had no idea what she was doing strategically, and she was on the block for the 2 weeks that she was in the house. So yeah, she's fitting. Brittany's definitely kind of up there. She really wasn't in any notable alliances from what I remember, and she kind of used the "I'm a single mother" card, and she kind of had an entitled attitude. Though she had some decent reads, but she never implemented anything. Amber is definitely someone that I have to put in the coaster category as well, because while she was in an alliance, she was kind of forced into the alliance by Devin going rogue. And even then, she was kind of just a passenger in the alliance until they turned on her, though she was starting to catch on to certain things. The only other person who really stands out to me is Victoria, and obviously she was a part of the Wiki article, and she is one of the known coasters, but she really didn't do anything. Jocasta, yes, I forgot about Jocasta. She's definitely up there since, like Victoria, that she was also just a pawn star. She really didn't have any alliances. I don't even think she and Donnie had an official alliance, only for her to go home mid-season, and I already kind of discussed Victoria, so we're gonna move on. On to Big Brother 17. There aren't many people. Meg was mentioned on the list. She was a part of an alliance, but she really was the least strategically capable and she knew it, so she didn't really try. She was good socially, but she never used that to ingratiate herself with the other side of the house. The other people that really stand out to me in this category are the Nolan twins, where obviously they were part of level 6, but they really didn't contribute anything to the game strategically. They had to be led by either Austin or Vanessa. The only difference between them is that Liz won competitions and Julia did not. But Liz made the moves that her team talked about doing. She never had her own self interest, and she could even explain her game properly. Where Julia didn't win power, and she did even less than Liz. With 18, With 18, there aren't many of them that I'm going to be putting on this tier. And I think it's due to the fact that the newbies on 18 are generally just a lot stronger than 14 and 13. Glenn I'm putting up there because he was a day one or day two boot. He didn't really have a chance to do much of anything, though he supposedly was a part of the Josiah Alliance, so I doubt he would have been much help there. Let's see. Oh, two other people stand out, and that is Zakia and James. Zakia was with the newbies for like a day, and then she moved on to the veteran group, though that was mainly due to Devon. And I think the thing with Zakia is that she was always being led by either Polly or Devon, and both of them are huge alpha personalities. But when things went wrong with their game, Zakia couldn't circumvent it, with Polly taking out Devon, which didn't help Zakia, and then she was voted out because they wanted to weaken Polly. James from Big Brother 18 is definitely a coaster because he kind of just rode the coattails of the vet alliance that he was in. Also, due to him and Derek having a connection, so he was incentivized to work with Polly before he flipped on Polly. And even him flipping on Polly was led by Natalie, Bridget, and Michelle. It wasn't him actively doing it. And then after that, he kind of just followed Nicole and Corey throughout the season. He wanted to stay back and not really take much action. And I think this kind of exemplified the lack of strategic prowess that he had on his prior season, but he wasn't put in a position to make the hard choices in comparison. And he wasn't the underdog this season like he was last season. I'm not gonna lie, there's a lot of people from Big Brother 19 who's gonna be on here. And obviously that's just due to the influence Paul had in the house. Cameron's going right up there with all the day one, day two boots due to just there not being any data on him. Who else? There's so many people I want to throw up here. Jillian didn't get much to do during her 1 week she was in the house. Same thing with Dominique. Though she was a part of an alliance, but she was always a passenger in the alliance. And even when Paul and them flipped on her, she didn't really have any coherent strategy to attempt to circumvent it. So she fits a cluster in my opinion. Ramses is someone that I am debating about because I do think he was intentionally going under the radar. He was also on the outs when it came to the strategic dynamics of the season, and because he was so passive, it caused him to go home on Jessica's HOH. Who else? Yeah, Elena is definitely going up there because she, out of everyone that was a part of the bottom of that cult, really didn't have any strategy. She was more than fine with riding with them, even when Mark wanted to make more moves, and it took her forever to realize that she wasn't in the in crowd. And by the time she realized that, it was too late and she couldn't really do anything. I already mentioned Matt, Kevin, and Raven in the article. All of them are proud to not have any power in the game. They're all proud to be carried by Paul. None of them are really relevant in the ongoings of the dynamics. Yeah, Matt's at the bottom. I don't know why they randomly do that. They don't put all of them in order. But yeah, Matt, Raven, and Kevin Dassis are definitely going on up there. They are some of the more notable coasters. They really, I think out of the three of them, only Matt won a single competition. They went with the herd. Even when it was against their best interest, they didn't even care to do anything more. And they weren't collaborators like a Josh or a Christmas was. So yeah. Okay, so we are on to Big Brother 20. Steve's definitely going up there. He really wasn't a part of the Fate Alliance. He did absolutely nothing during the 1 week that he was in the game, and he was blindsided. So yeah, he's going up there. I think only two other people really stand out in this case, in my opinion, and I think that is Rachel and Samantha. Obviously, Samantha was mentioned in the wiki piece because she was an affiliate of the level 6 side. She really didn't have any sort of coherent strategy. She thought strategizing was beneath her and something that no one should do. She even tried to weaponize, she tried to get everyone to not use the hacker power during the jury portion of the season. And then even her HOH week, she decided to nominate people who she didn't deem as feminists, and she didn't want to talk game with anyone. Rachel was a part of the Level 6 Alliance, but I do feel like she was the least influential or the least active out of everyone in that alliance. Obviously, during the early portion of the season, Tyler was essentially doing all of the work. But even the others showed other strategies, and Casey and Angela stepped it up during the second half of the season, but Rachel didn't really get that opportunity, so that's kind of why she's just here. I really don't care to talk about Big Brother 21, but David's going up here like all the other day one or day two boots. Cammy, I definitely consider to be a co-star because while she was a part of that Somewhat Girls Alliance, she herself didn't have much coherent strategy at all, and she doesn't fit anywhere else really. Annalise reminds me a lot of Sakia. I believe I mentioned that a few times on this channel. She was kind of led by a lot of the stronger personalities in her alliance. So a Christy, a Tommy, and a Jack. She was led by them, and then she was flipped on because she was so passive. And Jessica. Obviously, Jessica had her HOH where she nominated the Jacks, but when you really look at her position in the house and what she did, she was riding the wave. She really wasn't in really any notable alliances outside of her Girls Alliance blowing up early on and working with Catherine, but that didn't really get her anywhere. And her HOH didn't change the trajectory of her game. She was still seen as a co-star by everyone in the house, and she really wasn't involved in much of the dynamics at all of the season. So, with all with the all returning seasons, I'm going to have to use the icons of their first appearances. So Nicole, I'm moving up because she really didn't do much of anything. She was kind of just in a room with Kevin complaining about Kisa and Janelle and talking about whatever. They really weren't active in the strategy. Keisha is definitely going up there as well. She was a last minute alternate who was added onto the season. She had no idea what she was doing. She didn't campaign and she didn't strategize at all. Kevin's pretty much the same thing with Nicole, but he just lasted a lot longer. Even after Nicole was booted, he just kind of whined and complained about his position without putting any active work to improve his position. David was the coaster. He was pretty much the Chicken George of Big Brother Ass, and I'm referring to Big Brother All Stars 2 as Big Brother Ass. That's it is what it is. Where he essentially was a new player. He was definitely being carried by Tyler, specifically throughout the game, though Tyler got frustrated with David at various points in the season because he just wasn't getting it. He and Kevin were trying to be aligned with Bailey and Devon, but that was just too much of a mess because they were all just incompatible as allies. So yeah, that is where they all go, and I'm ending the modern era with that. We are moving on to the modern era. Not the modern era, sorry, the diversity era. Yeah, Travis's ass is going up there. He didn't do shit during his 1 week in the house. He didn't care to strategize. He wasn't really talking to anyone. So yeah, he's going up there. Whitney was a part of an alliance, but she wasn't an active part of the Sledgehammers. And even before and afterwards, she was kind of just hanging around, not really doing much of anything. So she's a coaster, in my opinion. And the only other people outside of these two that fit this category, in my opinion, are the three Jokers. Obviously, Azza and Derek F were mentioned in the wiki piece for being coasters, where the four other people in the cookout were already doing a lot of the heavy work to make sure that their alliance was very successful. And Brittany also hung out with Azza and Derek F, but obviously the main difference is that she wasn't in the cookout, but she still had the entitled coaster mentality that the other two had. So all three of them are very fitting with being up there, in my opinion. I know some people are going to be mad with my, or at least one of my choices for Big Brother 24. Indy really shouldn't be debatable. She didn't talk game and didn't want to make alliances for the first 3 weeks of the season, which caused her to be on the outs. She really was just irrelevant to the dynamics of the season. Alyssa is someone that I'm going back and forth on because there were weeks where she was definitely coasting off of Kyle's work throughout the season, but there are moments like her very last week where she was very active, and the first few weeks she was the collaborator of a Paloma or an Emir regarding the strategy that was happening in the game, but she's someone that will probably be put into more than one category once I really make it through all of these social strategies. Looking at the list, I don't know if there's anyone else that really fits. I'm going back and forth. Yeah, Turner definitely fits because he really, even though he won some of the HOHs, everyone knew that it wasn't his move. The Amira move was the Kyle, Joseph, and even Amonte move. He really had nothing to do with it. He didn't want to do with it, but he had to be pressured to do it. It's pretty much the same thing when he won the Final Six HOH and took out Michael. It was really Monty who pushed for that to happen. And that's the thing with Turner. He latched on to coast off of Pooch, but then Pooch went home. So he moved on to coast off of Kyle, and then when Kyle went home, and even with that, he was forced to send Kyle home due to Kyle's optics. So when Kyle went home, he latched on to Monty. I do have one other person in mind for this list, and this might piss people off, but I think Taylor's a co-star. She doesn't really fit any of the other strategies. She really isn't a collaborator, being like the right hand man of or right hand woman in any towards any of the leaders. She was really carried by the leftovers, but she really wasn't an important member of the alliance contributing to the strategy or whatever. She isn't floater. She is a floater because she wasn't floating between both sides. She's not a gamer. She really wasn't under the radar. She's not a snake, someone who could influence anything, and she really lacked agency in the game. Yeah, she's probably the most successful coaster out of all of them. I don't really see her much differently than a Jordan, though obviously we all know people like to act like she's better than she is at the game because she won and whatever else. Terrence is someone that I am going back and forth as to whether I should add or not. He really wasn't relevant to the dynamics or the strategy of the season at all, but I do feel like there are moments where he definitely tried to float throughout the season, and he was being active in that. I don't really know. It could go either way with him. So we are moving on to Big Brother 25. Kirsten's definitely up there. Obviously, we know that she had a messy like first few hours, but after that, she was very chill. She really wasn't doing much strategically, and she's kind of just irrelevant to the ongoings of the game. I think there's only like three other people that stand out in this category, in my opinion. One of them is Red because he was very loyal to the Surrey side of the house, though he was at the bottom of it. I know Cameron wanted to flip on them a few times, but Red always convinced him not to. Red really wasn't active strategically. He was mainly there to push his TikTok career, and he was even a good coaster. The next person I have to put here is Nicole, where she really wanted to replicate the Cookout Alliance, but she didn't realize that the other Black house guests of the season didn't want to do that. And there are options where she could have had more leeway and social relationships and more agency, as the other side did reach out to work with her at various points in times, but she kept on rejecting it because she was so stuck on this Cookout 2.0 ideology that wasn't a thing, and it caused for her to get booted at the end of the very long pre-jury because the other side got tired of her rejecting them, so that's why she got booted there. Fucking Bowie Jane. Sorry, I'm not saying that because fucking Bowie Jane. I'm saying that because I just wanted to quote Felicia. But yeah, Bowie Jane's definitely a coaster. She was writing, she was a ride or die chick for the Bye Bye Bitches, but they didn't feel that way about her. I do give her props for eventually flipping on them when she realized that they weren't seeing it for her, but it just caused her to latch onto Matt and Jack for the rest of the season. She sent home Cameron for them after they convinced her to, where it really wasn't in her best interest, and she acted like their fantasy was like the coolest thing ever, and it was just kind of cringe to watch. So yeah, I feel fine with putting Boyd fucking Jane there. Alrighty, so for Big Brother 26, I'm definitely putting Lisa there because she really didn't have any alliances throughout the season and she had no idea what was going on. Let's see. Kenny, pretty much for the same reasons that I'm putting Lisa there, he didn't really have any alliances and he was actively trying to quit the season, so I do think it's fitting to have him there. I'm only thinking of the pre-jurors. I don't think any of the other pre-jurors really fit there. Uh, The only other people that really stand out to me are Kimo and Rubina. I am thinking, should I put Cameron there? No, he was a bit more active in the strategy compared to some of the others. And he is working alongside a lot of people, so I don't think he's a poster in that way. Let's see. Yeah, Kimo and Rubina are definitely the main coasters, in my opinion. The only move that Kimo really made was to flip on Cedric, though I think he mainly did that because obviously he wanted to save Rubina, but I also think he let his crush on Tucker influence him throughout the season. And then once Tucker was gone, both Rubina and Kimo kind of lost a lot of the focus of the game. They're kind of being led by Tucker and Tikor for a lot of the season, and then once those two left, they were kind of just headless chickens, and they really weren't relevant to the ongoings of the season. I could put Cameron up there for now. I'm just gonna not. So this concludes my list. When I initially recorded this, though it was no sound, though I checked several times while I was recording it, but it wasn't muted. But that's besides the point. This was an hour and a half, though I re-recorded it and cut out some of the blank spot, and it's 50 something minutes. I'm assuming this will be arguably the longest one when it comes to the age strategies because there are a lot of coasters. I'm looking at everyone who is in this category, and I do think it pretty much fits. So from when I posted this last live, I mentioned that I was going to work on my Big Brother 26 review. As I'm recording this, I'm about halfway done that. So I'm hoping that I'll get the Big Brother 26 review slash retrospective up by this weekend for sure. I am also planning on doing more challenge videos, and I am planning on doing more lives when it comes to the 7 other strategies. I might have to pre-record it because StreamYard's acting weird with the volume. So that's annoying as hell, but yeah, I'll probably just do it like this, like I did the last few, or the last one actually. And I'll be back soon. Thank you all for watching, and I'll be back.